Hello, and welcome to the Heart of Fiat Crucified Love. I am excited this week to meet with you a little more casually. I just got this new antique rocker refinished from my dad's garage, and I thought, I'm just sitting in the rocker. I did pull out a picture of an icon of Jesus the Good Shepherd. Today is Good Shepherd Sunday. And I probably should have done a whole podcast on it because I have an awful lot to say about Jesus, our Good Shepherd. But what I wanted to talk about this week was the plight of persecuted Christians. And they need the Good Shepherd. They need Jesus as the Good Shepherd. And so we're going to kind of bring him into that, even though you won't see this till next weekend. It will still be a beautiful kind of combination of Jesus the Good Shepherd and the plight of the persecuted Christians. And I'm doing an awful lot of work. The Lord has catapulted me into the center of their pain and their life. And so, as a real mother, I guess a spiritual mother is a real mother, but as a physical mother is called to say yes to all of the children that the Lord sends her, right? Might be through, getting pregnant and giving birth. It might be through adoption. But a mother is called to always be open to life. So a spiritual mother is called to be open to life. So I don't have the ability to say no to any soul that the Lord sends me. And he has surprised me an awful lot, especially in this past year. I never expected that he would bring me the number of souls and the sort of souls that he has brought to me. But God is a God of great surprises, and I am honored to be able to help so many Christians that are being persecuted all over the world in my own little tiny way. And you watching this podcast hopefully will be inspired in prayer, and you will be part of that. We are all one family, and so we have a responsibility for each other. I remember when I was in Russia, I've told this story before, but I was walking down the street and there was a woman there who was really cold, and she was homeless, and I gave her my coat. And the priest with me got mad at me, and he was like, Mary, you cannot give away everything you have all the time, and what are you going to do? And I looked at him and I said, Padre, if that was my little sister, Kathy, you would not care that I took off my coat and gave it to my little sister to keep her warm. When I look at that woman, I see Kathy. I'll never forget, because I did. I was like, that could be my little sister, and she's cold. And I don't need this. I have plenty of more clothes back home, And so we all are called to have that kind of love and responsibility for each other, The suffering church in the countries, especially where the government or other religions really persecute the Christians. And there are many modern day martyrs, way more martyrs today than there were even 2,000 years ago. And they are our brothers and our sisters. I see in these letters from these young seminarians and priests now writing to me, I see my nephews. I mean, they're their age. They're younger than a lot of my nephews. And why would I not make time for them? Of course, Aunt Mary has time for you always. I'm very busy, so you have to schedule it, right? I don't do well with pop-ins because I'm just not usually here. But I will always make time for somebody who really needs it. And even just for that living relationship with them. So that is what we're going to discuss today. And I thought at the beginning, I just sang into my phone a cappella that song, Be Not Afraid. And I thought that what I would do is after we start this, so I'm going to stop it and then start it again. I'll go back to my computer and I will put in images of these persecuted Christians and their prayer and their witness, and what they have sent to me from all over the world. This is really our brothers and sisters willing to put their life on the line for the Lord in a way that most Americans have never been tested. Some, but not most. And so I will sing that song, Be Not Afraid, and then I will put those pictures in, and then we'll come back, and that will be our prayer. So let's just say a little prayer here at the beginning, and then I'll turn it off, and then I'll turn it back on, because it's easier for me than to have two segments. So in the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit, amen. Come, Holy Spirit, fill the hearts of your faithful, and enkindle in us the fire of your love. Send forth your Spirit, and we will be recreated, and thou shalt renew the face of the earth. Sweet Jesus, I praise and I adore and I thank and I love you on behalf of all of the people who suffer on earth for your name. What incredible witnesses we have of your grace working in little hearts, of your courage and your faithfulness in the hearts of those people who are willing to even put their life on the line for you. And I thank you for everyone that you're going to bring to listen to this podcast this week. And I ask you to pray over their hearts. Give them the same faith and the same courage, even if it's not tested in the same way, so that they can be true martyrs, whether they die. A martyr is a witness. So whether they die or they live, that they're willing to be a martyr for you, to have a martyr's heart. And we ask that you rip open the generosity in the hearts that are able to help us financially to continue to provide resources and support for those who are suffering. You said that anyone who gives 1 cup of cold water to a little one in your name will receive a great reward. Who gives a cup of water to a prophet will receive a prophet's reward. You're asking us to reach out to these little ones, to these living prophets, the saints on earth on the other side of the world, and to give them the drink of my books, of prayer, of support. And we ask you to draw more and more people into this ministry with us, and especially to ignite hearts in prayer, because through prayer, our brothers and sisters can be protected, even in the midst of fire. And I will be right back. You shall cross a barren desert, but you shall not die of thirst. You shall wander far in safety, though you do not know the way. You shall speak your words in foreign lands, and all will understand. You shall see the face of God and live. Be not afraid. I go before you always. Come, follow me, and I will give you rest. If you pass through raging waters in the sea, you shall not drown. If you pass amidst the burning flames, you shall not be harmed. If you stand before the power of hell, and death is at your side, know that I am with you through it all. I go before you always. Come, follow me, and I will give you rest. Blessed are your poor, for the kingdom shall be theirs. Blessed are you that weep and mourn, for one day you shall laugh. And when wicked men insult and hate you, all because of me, blessed, blessed are you. Be not afraid. I go before you always. Come, follow me, and I will give you rest. I, the Lord of sea and sky, I have heard my people cry, all who dwell in dark and sin, my hand will save. I who made the stars of the night, I will make their darkness bright. Who will bear my light to them? Whom shall I send? Here I am, Lord. Is it I, Lord? I have heard you calling in the night. I will go, Lord, if you lead me. I will hold your people in my heart. I, the Lord of snow and rain, I have borne my people's pain. I have wept for love of them. They turn away. I will break their hearts of stone, give them hearts for love alone. I will speak my word to them. Whom shall I send? Here I am, Lord. Is it I, Lord? I have heard you calling in the night. I will go, Lord, if you lead me. I will hold your people in my heart. I, the Lord of wind and flame, I will tend the poor and lame. I will set a feast for them. My hand will save. Finest bread I will provide, till their hearts be satisfied. I will give my life for them. Whom shall I send? Here I am, Lord. Is it I, Lord? I have heard you calling in the night. I will go, Lord, if you lead me. I will hold your people in my heart. Okay. I love this rocker. It's not as, oh, Jesus. It's not, like literally, Jesus. It's not as, deep as I usually like my rockers, but I want Jesus here as the Good Shepherd. I mean, it's a balance act, but he's so powerful, especially today because of the feast day, right? And we're going to ask him to be the shepherd of those suffering all over the world. But that song, Be Not Afraid, I'll tell you, I liked it growing up. Some people don't like that kind of music in church. I like that song. But I was really struck several years ago, probably 10 or 15 years ago, when I was at Mass one day, because I thought that would be maybe it was when I was in Russia, they had us write out for our funeral so that they knew what to do with us if we died. The bishop asked us all to, plan our funeral. So like, did we want our bodies sent back to the United States? Did we want to be buried there? And, and I thought, well, my family didn't get me in life. They can have me in death, right? If they want to pay for it, they can have it. Otherwise, I'm happy on the hill in Krasnoyarsk by some of the other missionaries that were buried. But you had to kind of come up with some of that. And so I prayed about it, and I remember thinking this song would be perfect at my funeral. Be not afraid. Be not afraid. Be not afraid. It's those words that John Paul II screamed in Rome when he became Pope. How we need his fire and his courage. Again, coraggio. And be not afraid. Every verse of that song I have seen in my life. And, after I was in Russia even, I lived it even more in other places. You shall, cross the barren desert and you shall not die of thirst. I hope I can remember this all. And, I lived in the desert. You shall wander far in safety, though you do not know the way. You will speak your words in foreign lands and all will understand. And people miraculously understood me. You will see the face of God and live. We look on him in the Eucharist and adoration. If you pass through raging waters in the sea, you shall not drown. If you walk amid the burning flames, you will not be harmed. I remember in Nigeria, they would set the fields on fire and we would drive our car in this little 7-foot wide path. And on either side for 20 feet in the air were fires. And I remember thinking, our car could get caught on fire. And, they'd say, well, just go really fast. But here, you could walk amid the burning flames and you would not be harmed. You could, stand before the power of hell. And I would think about my work in the exorcisms. And death is at your side. How many times did I face death? But know that I am with you through it all, right? And then it leads me to the verse that really wanted me to have that with these pictures here today. Blessed are your poor, right? The poor are mine. I'm not surprised that my books did not explode with EWTN and the wealthy parishes that I was hoping that would be excited. Like, my thought was, here I've spent my whole life giving to the missions. God put me working more for the wealthy in Chicago and then back here. So, maybe I should, try to help them instead of always preferring the poor, which is what I did, right? But, in America, it was, I wouldn't say a big flop, but it wasn't that exciting. And my books exploded with my people, my poor, the Anawim, the Rugamarole in the other side of the world, in these hovels, in these huts, in these, their families are being torn apart. They're being murdered for their faith. They're the ones on fire. But, Jesus says, blessed are your poor, for the kingdom shall be theirs. They had the gospel preached to them. And if you look at all the land of the hearts that my books were given to, and, they were given to bishops and, priests, friends of mine, people like in this country who totally should have been excited, who either ignored or rejected it, just spat in my face. And then you have these people who I totally don't know, who are suffering terribly, who can hardly put two together to, get their dinner. And they're doing everything they can. They're putting their life on their line. They're going without what they need in order to be able to be fed. So I look at, like the Lord said, there's, you throw your seed everywhere, and it's the land of the hearts that shows what kind of fruit's going to happen. Well, there are American hearts, and there are some who have been awesome, and I'm really happy to be connected with all of you. But there are some American hearts that were hard, that were cold, that were, proud, that had weeds of materialism or vanity or things like that just like choked them. Competition, jealousy. You wouldn't believe some of the emails I get sometimes from people. And then you've got this fertile soil, wet with the blood of the martyrs in Africa, in Pakistan. My first printer was killed, died. And so, that's where the fruit is just exploding. I never planned to be the spiritual mother of the Middle East, right? But I am honored and I am thrilled to be part of their life in any way I can lift their burden, right? So blessed are your poor, the kingdom shall be theirs. Blessed are you that weep and mourn. The woman today I heard from, whose brother was falsely accused in Pakistan and murdered for his faith. She said, Mary, you're like Our Lady. You give us hope. You give us peace. The first time since my brother was murdered. It makes me want to cry, right? Blessed are you that weep and mourn. One day you will laugh. Right? We're going to have a lot of fun in heaven. And I'm going to teach the Pakistanis about American pizza and good coffee from Africa, right? And they'll teach me how to roast it, right? My Ethiopians. And when wicked men insult and hate you, all because of me, blessed are you. I am not being hunted the way these people are. I'm not. Hopefully. I do live in a very safe place, and I do watch who's behind me, but I should be fine here. But wicked men insult and hate me. Like, I get that. And it might be a guy dressed in a turban in your back door there, in Saudi Arabia. But here, he just looks like, my brother would, right? A friend from nearby. And every human heart struggles with virtue and sin. So that wickedness can come through even people that should, be expected to be virtuous. But when wicked men insult and hate you, all because of me, I've been mocked publicly because I gave my life to divine providence, right? because I chose a path of the cross. I mean, I feel like someday I can tell you all everything that people have done because it's incredible, and it's an incredible witness. On the other hand, like, I'll be dead by the time I tell it, so I guess in heaven we'll all exchange stories. But I'm sure you have them too, where wicked men insult and hate you, all because of Jesus, right? And all the harder it is, it's one thing if it's Muslims. It's another thing when they're Christians, when they're Catholics, when they're your own people, right? But that's the responsorial psalm in the gospel today. The stone that the builders rejected has become the cornerstone. Who is that? Jesus crucified, right? Jesus crucified. Jesus rozpięty. Jesus crucificado? Something like that, right? Jesus ukrzyżowany, right? Jesus crucified. He's the stone that the builders rejected, that became the cornerstone. And, he himself said that unless you are a grain of wheat that falls to the ground and dies, you will not bear fruit. But if you die, you will bear fruit 100, 1,000-fold. We're going to talk about Jesus as the shepherd of these people. But first, I want to talk about these people. And I want to open this with a story. It's going to make me cry again. That I just heard about on March 24th, I think, because it was the day of their death. The Olma family in Poland. And I want to share it with you. These pictures, I printed them out. They're on the front of my fridge now, and I pray to them all the time for lots of things. But you see them. You see the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 6. 6 children, and then she is pregnant, 9 months pregnant with her 7th baby. And they were all martyred. They were murdered by the Nazis. And when they actually dug up her body to move them to a cemetery, she had gone into labor when she was shot, and her baby was half born. And so in Poland, Rome is looking at their cause of canonization as a whole family. It would be so beautiful. Their names are Josef and Victoria Ulma, and they're from the village of Markowa in Poland, right? And their children were Stanisława, who was 8, like Stanislav, right? Barbara, who was 7. Władysław, who was 6. Franciszek, who would be like Francis, who is 4. Antony, who is 3. Maria, who is 2. And then a newborn baby who's unnamed and unbaptized, although the hearts of the parents, there's baptism by desire, right? So their story, persecuted Christians, right, in Poland, in Catholic Poland. And the Nazis started murdering all the Jews. And they knew that Jesus said, like, what you do for the least of my little ones, you do unto me. And so I think it was 8, there were 8 Jewish people. There was like a family, there were some children. And they hid them, I think in their barn or in their home, right? And the Nazis found out about it because one of them owned property that the neighbor wanted and was very angry, and so he turned them in. And the Nazis wanted to make a show of it. So he paraded Victoria, who's 9 months pregnant, and Josef in front of their children and all the people in the village, and they shot them. And their children started to scream, and they shot the 8 people. So their little innocent children started to scream and cry, and the Nazis were annoyed. And one by one, he murdered all of them as well. She was 32, and her husband, Josef, was 44. So the 7 babies died. What joy can come from that, right? Like, why am I sharing that with you? Where was the good shepherd on that day? You know, where was the power of his wounds to defend, 2-year-old Maria from the sight of that and from such a horrendous death? but he was there. And we see him there now. Now I'm going to cry. I could turn it off, but I'm not. It's so tragic, but it's so beautiful. I'll tell you, I read about this story, and I kind of then, it struck me, and then I let it go. And I woke up one morning. It was from a dream. I was dreaming, but the dream woke me up. And it was this woman, and she was dressed in old Polish, traditional dress. And she was standing next to my bed, and my bedroom was dark. But my eyes were closed. I mean, I'm sure I was dreaming. But she had this biggest smile, and she said, we have a home towards the south of Poland, which this says it's southern, but it's more central when I looked it up, and I double checked with my Polish people. But she said, we have a home towards southern Poland, and we want you to be part of our family. We want you to come and live in our home. And she was inviting me. And I woke up and I thought, who is this Polish woman? And then I started to do my morning prayers, and then it struck me. I thought, that is Victoria Uma. And I ran to the front of my fridge where I had printed out this picture, and I looked up her picture, and I thought, oh, it was, except in these pictures, she has like more of a stoic face, and she was smiling with this huge, bright smile. And I thought, Victoria Uma just invited me into her home. Like, that is so awesome. So I felt like such a connection to this family and these 6 little kids and this baby. And I started to pray really hard, and we were meeting a lot of roadblocks in my Polish books. We still are. Amazon put up a block, and then getting it published was a block, and now it's being blocked to being printed and promoted in Poland. And please pray that I find somebody who is willing, who knows that God is asking them, because if God asks, you can't say no, you make it a priority, who's real responsible and responding and kind of helping, being able to do all that, to help me get a printer to get this book printed in Poland for Poland, because I know it will be powerful. We asked the Omas to help. But suddenly this tragic story had so much light. I've heard several people, one was a man who has cancer, and I got a message the other day asking for prayers, and then it says, we're asking the intercession of the Oma family. And I thought, how beautiful. The pro-life movement can take them. Years she was pregnant, her baby, her unborn, half-born baby is going to be canonized. That is so awesome. And what an intercessor for all of our little martyrs, right? We do have martyrs in America. They're called the unborn. But you see, these persecuted Christians, the seed that died, their story didn't end. The people told that story, and they went back, their bodies had been thrown somewhere, and they went back and undug them, and even though they risked their lives, and put them in a cemetery. And that's when they found that Victoria had gone into labor. Her little baby there was with her at her side. And they're going to live forever. She was happy when I saw her in this dream. She was beyond happy. And their intercession for the world because of their pain is that much more powerful. Here are this little farming kind of family in the middle of nowhere in a little village in Poland who decided to live what Jesus asked. That was their heroic virtue. A lot of you might say, well, I don't want to, get in trouble, and so I wouldn't take the risk. That's our responsibility as a Christian. They just lived that responsibility, and they did it beautifully. I just want to share that picture one more time of them. And up on the top, there's another one. You can just see the way they're all holding each other. How beautiful. So there are modern day martyrs, right? There definitely are. And, the postulator of their cause said, the Almas put God's law in the first place every day. And referring to those photographs I just showed you, he said, the smile of the children in the photos touches me. These children felt safe. They felt loved by their mom and dad. He said, in the case of the Ulma family, it's about proving that they were martyred for their faith in Christ and that the persecutors, the German Nazis, deprived them of their lives because of their hatred of the faith, their hatred of the Ulmas for living their faith, or for the virtue resulting from their faith. In this case, their love of neighbor that came from their faith was greater than their love of their own life. It's so beautiful. He said that also, when they discovered the half-born baby in the grave of his mother, he said it's the thrilling that you can see here every human being's deep desire to enjoy life and to come into this world. The congregation has included this unborn, nameless, and unbaptized child in the process of canonization. Just so beautiful. So beautiful. So I want to speak a little bit about the suffering of our brothers and sisters, especially in the Middle East and North Africa. And, shortly after I published The Holiness of Womanhood, I was contacted by a jillion people. The first was a man in Egypt who wanted to translate it into Arabic. He was working with converting Muslims. And we worked back and forth for a while, and I found an Arabic professor at Notre Dame who said he'd help me with the editing and all that. And then he stopped responding to my messages. I don't know if he became afraid or if he got threatened or something happened. But that got cut off. But I never thought my work, I wasn't thinking of translating. I mean, if you would have asked, I would have thought, well, maybe it'd be good in Polish or Spanish, right? Because I have Polish and Spanish people. And I will say that when I first published those books, I wanted them someday translated into Russian for my Russians, which they still haven't been. You can pray for that too. But I was contacted by, some people in Africa that started to translate, and they're still working on translations. But and then my dear Spanish and Polish translators that were friends for many, many years. But I was contacted by a man in Pakistan named Akif, who had been a Franciscan seminarian for many years. And then his father died, and he had to leave the seminary and not be ordained and go home and take care of his mother and family business. He eventually got married. He has a daughter. But he works a lot for the church. And he was just such a blessing, and he asked if he could translate. And I didn't know him. I mean, now I know him pretty well from our correspondences, but I did not know him very well. And I thought, just say yes. Just follow the yeses, and let's see where this goes, right? But I had no contact or experience with anything in Pakistan. It's not a country that... it's not even like Iraq where during the war, you learned a little bit about it or you knew, or, Lebanon was close to where I was very close to the border of Lebanon when I was in the Holy Land. So, some of that was more familiar, but Pakistan I didn't know. And ironically, I found out later the patron saint of Pakistan is St. Thomas. And I grew up at St. Thomas Parish when I was little. So maybe that had a connection. I don't know. But, we started working, and in no time, he translated the work, and he started to share with me about the plight of his people. And I had a friend in Poland that works with a non-for-profit organization that kind of helps the underground church in different places. But when I asked him about Pakistan, he said, we pulled out of Pakistan. It is way too dangerous. We do not have a network. You can kind of work with, some of these other denominations have a better network. So I thought that's interesting. And I started to be contacted by Catholics in Pakistan, randomly on Facebook. And they were begging me to get them a job and get them out of the country, which I can't. I'm so not that. I have nothing for you. I don't have a large home where I can put you in a bedroom. I don't have a business where I can employ you. I don't have any legal knowledge of immigration. I am not able to get you out of your country. But I tried to feed them to the other people that I had networked in their country. And I'll tell you, having traveled the world, every country has crosses and has blessings. Every country. And so, you run away from the cross in this country and you'll get a cross in this country. Like earth, this side of eternity is suffering. Like we have suffering in our life. And so what the Lord has asked me to do, I learned that in Russia. I can't solve every problem of every person, right? There's too many problems. I felt like the society was so broken and dysfunctional when I got to Siberia. How can I fix that all? All I could do is be with them in their pain, right? Like Jesus, like he couldn't immediately just like yank us all into heaven. Like we had to have earthly life. So he came to earth to be with us, to show us the way, to make that path in the wilderness wasteland, right? So we saw those bloody footprints of his, where he took the first blows to teach us how to respond to suffering, how to use suffering for the glory of the Father, how to grow closer to him through everything that he allows to happen, no matter how awful. Some of it's awful. But he endured awful things, right? This is our Savior. This is our King. This is our general, our army general in this war, right? And so he won't ask anything he hasn't suffered on his own. So, I started to try to help them. Like, I will help you where you are, right? I will give you what I can. And I'm not a millionaire. I can't feed you. I can't buy you, everything that you need. I can't do that. But I can give you what the Lord's given me, my writing, my spiritual teachings that I've gathered, my knowledge and my prayer and my friendship. I can give you friendship. And so that's what I've tried to offer to them. And, when I started to publish these books, I had a problem because, one, I like to be hidden, and you can't be if you are in the media world, right? Like I'm doing a weekly podcast. So like, I didn't know how to reconcile that with my spirituality of hiddenness. But, I tried to use St. Dominic as an example to either talk to God or about God. And then he's in charge of all that. And I also didn't know what to do about making money. I've always had a problem with that because my life was for the poor, to be with the poor, to serve the poor, to not try to climb that ladder, right? We need it, and I need it. I do. But I didn't know how to reconcile that. So in one way, I am just thrilled that God allowed the path that I thought would happen, that like, hey, I've got EWTN people saying they have never read a book on the vocation of woman as good as mine. Like Father Mitch Pacwa, that's pretty good recommendation, right? And I thought that it would just explode. And it didn't. I just saw like the road that the Lord had prepared and watered just dried up because people were indifferent. And then he like opened up this huge byway to the wasteland, to his suffering people, those who were dying for their faith, those who, a book of mine in America would be a month of their income, right? They can't buy that. So I thought, okay, I always was for the poor. And I always wanted to live that line from Scripture that Jesus said, without cost you have received, without cost you are to give. I received this knowledge, this ability to write this book, this, the connections I have to get it in a printed form, the help from my awesome publisher that helps me with everything, and I received that for nothing. So I need to try to provide this for nothing. Now, in America, people buy books. We're a reading culture. So I can't have, a box of free books sitting in the back of every church. I don't have money for it. Somebody does have to pay for the printing. But when I found out that you could print these books for like a minimal amount, like, $1 a book in Pakistan or in Africa or in, Central America or wherever, then I realized, wow, if we could find printers on the ground to print them, and no, they're probably not as beautiful papered as we have. They work, right? and then somebody to distribute it, then maybe we could provide some for free, or at least at cost, right? So the plan originally was to provide a lot of them at cost, and that if people bought them for just that $1 or $2, which is reasonable, then they could use that money to pay the printer to print more. But what they started to see in some of these places is that people really couldn't afford anything. And they were at the end of their rope. They were being falsely accused and threatened with death. They were, couldn't get jobs because they were Christian. Their children were being kidnapped and forced into Muslim marriages. Their daughters were being raped. And so how do you look at someone like that and say, this book, in order to heal your heart, you have to pay? That's just ridiculous. You can't do that. So we've tried to provide them, at least for most people, for free. If they find somebody who's able to pay, then they'll do it at cost. But many, many of these poor village people, or the people who have suffered so much, we're trying to provide these all for free. And the witnesses that have come back from these countries, it's just, I've learned so much about their personal suffering. And like I said, I'm honored that they would trust me with that. That they would share that witness with me. And I cannot believe how my little tiny nothing, 5 loaves and 2 fish, sure, I'll write it all down and I'll throw you a book, God has used to just transform their entire lives. Women who always wanted to be a man, because in their society to be a woman was awful, for the first time, through tears, weeping, saw the beauty of their own creation, their own vocation. And it's so beautiful. The very Muslims in some of these places that are killing the Catholics started requesting my book because their women were being mistreated and their women didn't know their dignity. And they have dignity. And it's amazing to me because, one of my friends said, Mary, don't you write about Jesus? Isn't that a Catholic book? And I said, yes. It's like what I wrote back at Notre Dame. It's very Catholic. I put, Pope John Paul II, Fulton Sheen, Edith Stein. And she was like, that's so wild. But, God sees hearts. And you could have a seemingly perfect, ground in Granger, Indiana, of a woman that goes to, St. Pius, who you would think would be who I should give this book to. But because of her life, because God knows her heart, it's just not taken root. And then you've got a Muslim woman who doesn't even really know Jesus. But God knows her heart. Her heart is in the right place, or it's humble, or it's wounded in the way that this book would answer. And they're given it in northern Nigeria. And their entire life is transformed. I had a Muslim college and the imam at the mosque request 100 copies of The Holiness of Womanhood for their professors, for the nurses, for the women that attended there. And it wasn't just stealing them. I had pictures of them with the book. I had testimonies from them. And it's just incredible. And so, when I started to work in Pakistan, I wanted to know a little bit more about these people. So I got online, and started searching it out. And God was searching it out for me even before then. I mean, I got a phone call one day from Zanzibar. And I asked this priest, I said, how did you get my name? He goes, I just Googled help for persecuted Christians, and Mary Kloska came up. I thought that's so weird because that was before I started doing all of this with the persecuted Christians. But it was like God was pointing me out to them in Zanzibar, the other side of, that's the Muslim part of the end of Tanzania on the very bottom is Zanzibar. And that's mostly Muslim. And he worked in a Muslim area and he has a school for Christian girls. And if I can get donations, I'll send him books too. I just don't have enough for everyone. But, it's interesting. God would point them out to me and point me out to them. But grace builds on nature. So, I started Googling, tell me a little bit about these people. And, that was what I would do when I would go to a mission. I would always, go to Barnes & Noble and take out, a travel book because I don't know. I've never been a big internet person. I guess now I'd probably Google it. But, I remember before I went to Africa in 2005, going and getting a stack of books and just sitting there with coffee and trying to read about Nigeria and the different peoples, the different cultures, the different, everything. So I started doing that with Pakistan, and I couldn't believe what I found out about the persecutions in Pakistan today. And it was interesting. My mom, not too long ago, got a Protestant newsletter in the mail requesting money for help in Pakistan. And she's like, Mary, tell me what you think about this. And they had these like horrendous stories. This couple that was burnt alive and like all of this stuff. And she's like, can you ask your people if this is true? Is this really? So I sent it to my translator, and he said, oh, yes. He said, in fact, I went and witnessed at that complex where they were, and I had to have armed guards to go with me to be with those people. Yes, it's all true. So I went home. I was like, you can donate. It's true. But it's just incredible, like the knowledge of what they're going through. And like the world doesn't speak about it. It's really a shame that you're not allowed to freely choose your religion, that your life would be threatened because of your love of Jesus Christ. And I just spent this weekend actually putting up on my personal webpage, which is just marykloskafiat.com. So Mary, KLOSKAFIAT.com. And I always put it at the end of these podcasts. So if you go to my webpage, under more, there's a section now for persecuted Christians, and you can find links to the information of these countries, and you can find all of the different like emails and texts I've gotten back and forth from my people in these other countries, and the testimonials and pictures of my books there and kind of what's going on there. So it's kind of beautiful to go there if you're interested in reading more just facts about persecuted Christians in Pakistan, for example. Go and you can click. There's a couple links that I put there. But I'll tell you, as my translator began to translate my first book, The Holiness of Womanhood, he sent me a message, an email. He said, I hope our main concern of the Urdu translation is to heal many women who are spiritually and physically wounded in Pakistan. These women belong to different fields of life. They come from urban and rural places. They are simple and many times not very educated and rich. He ended up gathering large numbers of 100 or so of illiterate women. And they'd have one book, and somebody would stand up and they would read the book aloud to these illiterate women to help heal them. And then they would do like small group, ideas. So even though I've only had 2,000 books printed, we're working on, I don't know how many more right now. I think we're working on 2,000 more. I just sent money. But we have had 2,000 books printed and given away there. But we've counted, they've probably touched 20, 50,000 people because they would gather in these groups and just like share one book with a large number of people, right? He said, I have healed myself after reading this book, and I wish that other men and women are able to be healed as well. This book gave me a new vision and new eyes with which to look at my daughter, my wife, my mother, my sister, and other women. So the book's not just for women. It's so that men come to understand the beauty and the dignity of the vocation of woman. He said, our women in Pakistan have been badly treated by society and church. This book will give them some hope to find Jesus. Our church, even the Catholic Church, has not been fair to women. Women have been treated as an object. Women do not have any visible or decision-making place anywhere. So maybe this book might give us less profit because we aren't going to make money in Pakistan. I lose money in Pakistan. But it will bring hope and new life to women. That's all that matters, right? Give them life. He said, I know the importance of this book. The book is so insightful. Our women are going to read something that they've never thought of before. And for this, I thank you, Mary. I am sure that this book will quench the spiritual thirst of many men and women. Though people do not have this book in Urdu yet, which now they do, right? Mary has really inspired our women already. I have shared her amazing life story with my people, especially the women, both young and aged. So that's really beautiful, right? He said that the whole society, Muslim, Protestant, Catholic, rich, poor, rural, urban, they all are being challenged by the thoughts in the holiness of womanhood, right? Many people in Pakistan can't even afford a Bible. So to afford a book, is a lot. And so it's so important that we continue to be able to make these available for free, right? And I have such a good network. I have such a good system worked out. With Pakistan, it's like seamless. This guy is so trustworthy. So we have a way of getting him money. He's got his printer. He gets it done. And then he goes out into the field. Like he'll go to a church. He'll give a talk. He'll give them away. But then he doesn't stop with that. He starts little groups and we have prayer groups. We have, reading groups. We have so much that we're doing fruit that's coming forth that goes beyond just like having a book and reading it, right? And saying, well, that's interesting, Mary. It's really transforming people. It's really transforming. I was able to get 300 printed in northern Nigeria, and we're doing another 300. And my little contact there, the seminarian helping me, sent me a message a few days ago, and he goes, Mary, this is incredible. And it was someone he didn't know, and it was another seminarian and a philosophy student. And he named where he was, and he introduced himself, and he said, I heard that there is a book by Mary Kloska called The Holiness of Womanhood, and I want it for my personal library. I will purchase it, which we're giving them away for free there. But he's like, Mary, you have no idea how on fire people are about this. And so he's sending 30 up to that seminary for not only the seminarian, but then his brothers that are there. There's a couple other seminaries that received copies, and I got pictures back. You can see on that webpage of them all, showing it and waving. And there were some religious sisters that requested it for their novices. They wanted 30 of them to go through it with them. And there are others that were using it in the hospital and giving it to the Muslims. There are many being given to Muslims throughout northern Nigeria. There was a little girl who sells bread in the north who saw the book, and it's that beautiful picture of Our Lady on the front, and she loved the picture. So she came up and she asked what it was, and she said she would take it home and read it to her parents who didn't read. And there was another little girl, I think it was in Pakistan, whose family couldn't read, but they had this small girl who knew how to read, reading it out loud to the family in the evening. It's just so beautiful. And their life is terrible. And especially when, the printer died in Pakistan, and then the more information I was receiving about how dangerous it is to be a Christian there, I came back and I said to my translator, are you sure? Are you sure you want to risk this and do this, right? And he said, Mary, I'll never forget this line. To be a Christian in my country is certain death. But your book gives hope, strength, and meaning to our death. So they have to be ready to die at any moment. But they said by reading about the dignity of our personhood in The Holiness of Womanhood, and then the other book, which was Out of the Darkness, it was about the passion of Christ. They said we have hope of heaven. Like it gives us a hope, even if we do die. It gives us strength to endure what we've done because we see how strong Christ was and his response, and we need to respond the same way, right? It gives meaning to what we're suffering because he gives meaning to all suffering, right? So it's just really beautiful. There are 204 million people in Pakistan. 4 million are Christian. So you could give me $4 million and it wouldn't go to waste. We would just hand out 4 million books. Okay. And that's just the Christians. That's not, the Muslims that are interested. But it's just incredible to think the number of people who are suffering there, right? I mean, if there's 4 million Christians and the country's 204 million people, then, that is a majority. There's 200 million that are Muslims that are doing the persecuting. But we just have to do our little part, that little 5 loaves and 2 fish, and then the Lord will multiply it. The Lord will multiply it. I'm blown away every time I go in my closet because I pulled all my plants in, and I decided they actually didn't do real well in the end of the fall. But I thought instead of throwing them out, I'm going to try dormancy. So I put them in my dark closet. There's 0 sunlight. I didn't water them since October. And a couple months ago, they started to bloom. And every day there are new, big, beautiful flowers coming out of this dried up. I have not given it 1 ounce of water since October, and it is 0 sunlight. And I collect the flowers then when they fall to the ground because I feel like they are totally miraculous. That's like the work in Pakistan right now. And in Nigeria, where you've got both the Muslims and then the Christians being killed by the Muslims, wanting to learn the gospel as explained in these books that I wrote. It's really miraculous. It's really miraculous. And I hope that besides just feeding your prayer and maybe, encouraging a donation from you or something, to help with these persecuted Christians, I hope, if nothing else, this just gives you hope. If you're encountering a situation in your life that seems dead, that seems hopeless, it's dried up, you got no water, you got no sun, it is done, you can still bloom. You can still give the Lord beautiful flowers because it's happening in my closet. I ran in last night. I thought, I wonder if there still are more. There's 3 or 4 bloomed flowers in there. And I can't keep taking pictures because I started to just take a bunch of pictures. And I was like, well, it's just happening. It makes me not want to put them out because I like the miracle going on in the closet. But God can do that in your life. And he's doing this here. He really is. So I saw an article in my news feed about a young girl named Arzu, who was an innocent Catholic child abducted, forced into conversion, and married to a 45-year-old man. So imagine being this little Catholic girl, kidnapped, raped by a huge 45-year-old gross Muslim man. That's just awful. It's child abuse to the 10th, 100th degree. And her family found her birth certificate and went to the court to show this is what happened because they were claiming that she was 18 and she wasn't. She was 13, I think. And the court sided with the man and they said, we will give police protection to this newly married couple who's being persecuted. It's just awful. And so many people, so I asked Akif about this and he wrote, greetings and hope that you read this message in the best of health. I hope that you've heard the sad news about the young girl named Arzu. She is a 13-year-old girl from Karachi, Pakistan, kidnapped by a 44-year-old Muslim who forced her to convert to Islam and marry him. Arzu is from a Christian family from the parish of St. Anthony of Karachi. The child was kidnapped by a Muslim while playing outside her home. Every family and all the young girls are sad and afraid these days. There are many protests on the road as well. Young Christian girls and even boys are losing hope. They're really uncertain about their future. Parents, especially mothers, are also looking for some hope and peace. There is sadness in the air of our place. So I decided to go to the church and spread some hope through this tough time. Today, I got an opportunity to talk to the Christian youth of one of our churches in Lahore. In the beginning of my talk, everyone was sad. Everyone shared their uncertainty. Everyone is experiencing hopelessness. Then I started reading a few sites from your book. Later, I translated into Urdu, as many of them couldn't understand English. Gradually, I felt a certain kind of hope, a peace, and some joy. I spent some time with them on chapter 8 of your book, Woman and the Cross, the Eucharist, and prayer. Mary, thank you for bringing hope, joy, and peace to our wounded women through your book. Pakistani women need your book in Urdu. This has become the sign of our time and our situation. Every day our women are facing bitter realities, and your book is bringing them understanding and peace. Our women, rich, poor, old, young, uneducated, educated, urban, rural, and of course wounded, are waiting to be healed, and your book can bring some healing and understanding. Take care, and God bless. Everything be done according to God's plan. Then I have links to those articles. So we were able to print some books and give them out. Which is wonderful. And I'm looking, I took some of these emails. That was about the printer that died. There was an ABC article last couple weeks ago that ran about how 1,000 girls are kidnapped or tricked and then forced to convert to Islam every year in Pakistan, as young as 13 or 14. It's very, very real. I mean, ABC had an article on it, right? And then the outbreak of the persecution of the Catholics in Nigeria started, and there was a bishop, and then there were a few priests that I knew that had been kidnapped and were being held for ransom. And it was scary because it wasn't only in the north where that happens a lot. Some of it happened down in the east, down in the Catholic Igbo area. And I was getting a lot of messages about that. And at the same time, the seminarian asked if we could print my book and give them for free to priests, religious, seminarians, and then Muslims in Nigeria. We were able to provide that. And then back in Pakistan, women are crying because they always wanted to be men. And for the first time in their lives, they're hearing that they're made in the image and likeness of God. I mean, can you imagine just like a book? But it's life-changing, life-changing. I got a message this morning from them. And he said, there is a teacher that came to me crying who said her brother was, falsely accused by the Muslims and murdered several years ago. And for the first time, she has hope and peace and healing from reading your book. And she said, Mary Kloska does not know what she's doing here. She is just like Our Lady who brings peace to those who suffer the most. Goodness, from a book. So if you're on the edge about, should I help her or should I not? Go to the GoFundMe page and throw a cup of coffee, a $5 thing in there. Either the holiness of womanhood or out of the darkness. I should probably consolidate them. But we're printing both again because they're both very important to have there. There was a priest that worked with rescuing Muslim women who were pregnant with triplets or twins, and they would be considered cursed and they would be buried alive with their babies. And he rescues them, and he requested some books. I somehow lost contact with him, so I didn't get to deliver them. But he had requested them from me, and that just kind of tells you the situation there in northern Nigeria. And again, in Pakistan, my translator wrote to me one day, I have sold books in different areas of Lahore. There are really many women and men who have a thirst to read it, but they have no money to buy it. I also wish to print Out of the Darkness, which we did, because these days Christians are really suffering in Pakistan. Even 3 days earlier, a woman named Tabitha, a gospel singer, was the victim of blasphemy. Everyone knows she's innocent, but people really beat her badly in the hospital when she was on duty. She is a nurse by profession. I really do not know what could be done for these innocent women, but at least of all, books like Out of the Darkness and The Holiness of Womanhood can give them hope. These books, will tell them that Jesus has suffered for our suffering. He is very much present in our daily suffering. Every day, Christian women and men suffer in this country. I have really left everything on God. He will guide you, but I need your continued prayers. And then he sent some pictures. It's just incredible. And in Nigeria, well, I'll leave that out. The book reached a group of nurses and high school students in northern Nigeria, Muslim girls. You can see their pictures on my webpage. A religious sister received a book last weekend and it was passed around her convent. They requested 25 additional copies for her sisters and to use with the novices. Another religious sister is distributing the book in the Muslim north to the people she serves at the hospital. About Pakistan, greetings and hope you get this message in the best of health. As I shared with you these days during Holy Week, I'm sharing out of the darkness with different groups. Today I was able to approach a school and a family to share the suffering of God and his love. Teachers, after reading this book, are full of tears. They acknowledge that these tears are of deep sorrow for Jesus' suffering, as well as joy for his love. I was able to give a few books to their school as they promised to read this with a big group on Good Friday. Then the pictures of a group with a family, where a mother with her children was able to read the book aloud. The good thing is that the mother could not read, but her small daughter read it for her and the whole group. All praise be to Jesus. It was really a feeling that Jesus is being suffered right in front of them. It's just so beautiful. And then the fruit of it at the very end is I always wanted to start. My third book that was published is In Our Lady's Shadow, The Spirituality of Praying for Priests. And I've always, when Rhonda Shervin read it, she said, Mary, you've got to start an apostolate based on this book. And I've always thought I might, but I didn't know how. And I wanted to start prayer groups of children for priests, really. And I'm going to have to develop this. But so after getting some more persecution, there were a couple other people being threatened by death and who had been beaten and tortured. And Akif said that they were just really down. So he gathered a small group of children and they had a prayer meeting, and he's going to do that. And he was telling me how powerful it is. Well, I wrote back to him and said, I've always wanted to found a prayer group of children, apostolate. Let's do it together. And I was going to do it for priests, but let's do it for priests and persecuted Christians, right? And so my group's in America is going to meet on the first Fridays of the month. And I have several other families who said they'll do it at their homes, wherever they are. He meets basically every Friday, but we're calling the groups the Children of the Cross. And just simple prayers. And like here in America, we don't have to share the details. They don't have that grave reality in their face, and they shouldn't. Their innocence should be preserved. Just to pray for people who suffer because they believe in Jesus, right? That there are places in the world that happens, and then to pray for priests. Something, a half hour, a chaplet of mercy, and decade of the rosary, and maybe some spontaneous prayer. But, in Pakistan, it's different. My mom said, they're reading your book and they're children? And I said, well, that was kind of my thought at first because it wasn't written for children. But these children are raised to be little martyrs. Like, they know they have to be told to be careful. They can be kidnapped outside, right? And they hear about the murders around them of people who are Catholic. And so they're raised in a different environment. And so God is giving them a maturity in their soul. And it's different. The society, the culture is different. What they're dealing with is different. And so it's very beautiful if they can find something powerful in that, right? So here at the end, he wrote to me about these groups. He said, Yesterday, 2 Christian nurses were falsely accused in blasphemy in Faisalabad, a city in Punjab. The surrounding environment is sad and full of fear. Then in Hyderabad, a city near Karachi, a woman named Agnes Nizar Misah was raped. And even in the city, people, especially women, were full of fear. The same day, in the same city, a Christian girl of 16 was forced to get married to a Muslim. These stories every day are there to make sure that Christians are daily persecuted in our country. No one is there to follow these cases. Every day, many young men and women are persecuted because they're Christians. These 3 sad and shocking incidents made me cry. So I gathered a group of 5 people, young and even children, to pray. We read paragraphs from Out of the Darkness in Urdu. I tried to contact these victims and told them somehow that a small group is praying with them in their persecution. I told them that Jesus is with us in the suffering, and we and Jesus both have emotional, psychological, and physical sufferings. Mary, I am sure you really do not know how much your book is bringing hope to our persecuted community. There are many women who, after reading your book, The Holiness of Womanhood, acknowledge that your book has told them the true meaning of being a woman. May God provide more so we can print more of both of these books, and then the third that he's translating. We've decided to use this prayer group wherever persecution takes place. We will use your book, Out of the Darkness, and gradually increase groups. The main responsibility is to use your book and to pray for persecuted communities here in Pakistan and throughout the world. And so, like I said, I contacted and said, let's do this together, and we'll do it for priests and persecuted Christians. So a little apostolate was born. Here I'm at an hour, and I didn't get to share with you what I wanted to from Good Shepherd Sunday. But I am still going to read just a section here at the end, because it's a promise of Jesus, right? This is what our Good Shepherd looks like. This is what he's willing to endure to make sure that we're safe, right? And he says it we heard it in the gospel today, right? John 10 here. Right? Amen, amen, I say to you. I am the gate, right? All who came before me are thieves and robbers, but the sheep did not listen to them. I am the gate, and whoever enters through me will be saved. A thief comes in to steal and slaughter and destroy, but I came that they may have life and have it abundantly. That's what he wants for Pakistan. That's what he wants for everyone. That's what he wants for the persecuted babies that are aborted in our country. He wants us to have life and to have it abundantly. I am the good shepherd. A good shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. That's where they find hope. That's where we find hope. A hired man who is not a shepherd and whose sheep are not his own sees a wolf coming and leaves the sheep and runs away, and the wolf catches and scatters them. This is because he works for pay. He has no concern for the sheep. But I am the good shepherd. I know mine, and mine know me, just as the Father knows me, and I know the Father. And I will lay down my life for the sheep. He pulls us into that intimate of a union that he has with his Father. He knows us. He knows our suffering. He loves us. And that should give us hope no matter what we have to face. This is why the Father loves me, because I lay down my life in order to take it up again. No one takes it from me, but I lay it down freely, right? And it's beautiful because he says, I have other sheep that don't belong to this fold, and these also I must lead, and they will hear my voice, and there will be one flock, one shepherd. Who is it that doesn't belong to his fold? The Muslims that are reading these books? And they're also his sheep. And he's also calling them to be one with us. And it's so beautiful to see this reconciliation, this peace being spread on earth through such a little instrument of a book I wrote in love, and then people's generosity to help spread it, and then our prayer and our suffering for these people. In Ezekiel, God gets mad at the shepherds that aren't taking care of their sheep, right? And he says that they've become plunder. They've become food for wild beasts for lack of a shepherd. My shepherds didn't look after my sheep. They pastured themselves. But then he says, I will take my sheep out of their hand and put a stop to their shepherding, right? I myself will search for my sheep and examine them. He's doing this. He's doing this in the Middle East. He's doing it in Africa. He's doing it in China. He's doing it in Russia. He's doing it here. Jesus himself will search for his sheep and examine them. As a shepherd examines his flock while himself is among his scattered sheep, so will I examine my sheep. He's going to come to each one of these souls, to you and to me and to, these women in Pakistan, these priests suffering so much in Nigeria, and he's going to examine them. He's going to say, tell me your wounds. Tell me where they hurt you. Tell me what they did. Let me heal you with my love. I will deliver them from every place where they were scattered on the day of dark clouds. I will lead them out from among the peoples. I will gather them from the lands. I will bring them back to their own country. I will pasture them on the mountains of Israel, in the ravines and every inhabited place in the land. In good pastures I will pasture them. And the mountain heights of Israel will be their grazing land. There they will lie down at good grazing land. In rich pastures they will be pastured on the mountains of Israel. I myself will pasture my sheep. I myself will give them rest. The lost I will search out. The stray I will bring back. The injured I will bind up. The sick I will heal. But the sleek and the strong I will destroy. I will save my flock so they can no longer be plundered. I will appoint one shepherd over them to pasture them. I, the Lord, have spoken. I will make a covenant of peace with them. These are the words of hope he leaves us with. I will rid the country of wild beasts so they will dwell securely in the wilderness, sleep in the forests. I will settle them around my hill. I will send rain in its season, the blessing of abundant rain. The trees of the field shall bear their fruit, the land its crops. They shall dwell securely on their own soil. They shall know that I am the Lord when I break the bar of their yoke and I deliver them from the power of those who enslave them. They shall no longer be plundered by the nations, nor will wild beasts devour them, but they shall dwell securely with no one to frighten them. That's a promise. I will prepare for them peaceful fields for planting, so they are never again swept away by famine in the land, or bear taunts from the nations. Thus they will know that I, the Lord their God, am with them, that they are my people, the house of Israel. You are my flock. Yes, you, people, are the flock of my pasture, and I am your God. That's where our hope remains. Glory be to the Father, and to the Son, and to the Holy Spirit, as it was in the beginning, is now, and ever shall be, world without end. Amen. Thank you.